My name is Angelique Francis, and we are the Angelique Francis Quartet. And today, we are going to take you on a journey throughout the history of the blues. You see, the blues is at the root of all modern North American music and is forged from the cultures and traditions of the African diaspora, and is responsible for creating and influencing many genres such as jazz, folk, funk, rock, pop, and hip-hop, and many more. It is an integral part of our history, and its influence can be found throughout our everyday lives. And so we're gonna take you through the many emotions and stories that it expresses. This first song is an original song of mine called Long River. And I wrote this song about the river of life. You see, the river feeds us. It replenishes us. It frees us. But at the end, we all return to that long river.
Long, long way long, long way I'm dreaming of.
Good morning, everybody. It's Miss Elizabeth Pelliconi, your spiritual community animator, and welcome to our Black History Month Assembly across both campuses for Laurel Hill Academy. Before we get into the assembly, I want to just say some thank yous before we start introducing our guest speakers and all of that. I want to say thank you, first of all, to all the students who volunteered to participate in this assembly with their curiosity and their poems that you are going to read. I would like to thank Miss Amara Sakara, Miss Stark, Miss Romulus, Miss Dimitri for their collaboration and co-creation of this assembly, as well as Mr. Kulchik, our VP on Senior Campus, and Lucas, who also works on Senior Campus, to be our directors and backstage producers. I want to thank our wonderful guest speakers in advance, Mr. Egbert Gay, Mr. Alan Babineau, and Mr. Duke Eatman, as well as Chef Nika from Lombard's Catering, who will be providing the Haitian patties that junior campus students will be eating for snack this afternoon, and Lloydie's Hearty Caribbean Food supplying Jamaican patties for the students at senior campus. The owners of Lloydie's is actually run by some LHA alumni parents, and they also make a generous donation to the scholarship fund for Laurel Hill Academy students who graduate. I want to point out that both catering companies are from the Ville Saint Laurent area, and we want to support and promote our local businesses during this pandemic time. So welcome. We have a jam-packed program for you, and I hope you do enjoy it. Black History Month is a tradition that dates back to 1926 when an African-American historian in the United States decided that there should be a week to celebrate the accomplishments and the contributions of African Americans to American history and American society. And since then, it has grown into a recognition and a celebration time that is recognized around the world in Canada and throughout the rest of the world. And so February is Black History Month, and we honor that today. We are going to start with our first guest speaker, Mr. Egbert Gay. He is an editor and publisher of a community publication that is the voice of the Black and Caribbean community of Montreal. And he is joining us today from NDG, I believe. Hello.
Hello, Miss Pelliconi.
How are you?
I am very good, and how are you?
I'm very well. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit before we move on to our discussion and questions?
Well, like you said, I'm the founding editor, managing editor of Montreal Community Contact. 2.5 decades or so of service to the Black and Caribbean community. I say Black and Caribbean because all Black people are not from the Caribbean, and all the people from the Caribbean are not Black. So that's the population that we serve. People might also hear me once in a while on CJAD radio as a political commentator. I'm also on MAT TV, also as a political commentator. So basically, that's it. Not much. Just a newspaper guy and I'm doing my thing as a political commentator on mainstream media. So that's basically what it is. I trained at Concordia University School of Journalism, the journalism school at Concordia, and that's it. I started Montreal Community Contact 20 something years ago, and we'll talk a little bit about that as I get into my address. So let me start. Tell me when to start.
Well, we have some students who would like to ask some questions.
All right.
So I'd like to bring on the first student. So Rudy Grief, are you there?
Hi.
Hi, Rudy Grief. Do you have a question for Mr. Egbert Gay?
I do. So my question is, what is the history of the Black community in Montreal?
Nice question, Rudy. Congratulations again on this thing. Thanks for the question. The history of the Black community in Montreal and Quebec, it digs deep into the history of Quebec. Blacks have been here it is said that Matthew da Costa was one of the navigators who came along with Samuel de Champlain in the exploration of North America. So you'd find a Black presence in Quebec, especially for as long as the province, the colony has been in place. Over the years, the community has grown. We've had other colorful characters, people like Marie-Josée Angelique. You would have heard of Marie-Josée Angelique. She was brought here originally, I think, by the Portuguese, and she was said to have burnt down a significant part of the early colony of New France because she got into some problems with the slave owners, and she was a rebellious one, and she ended up burning it down. But the history moves forward quickly because Blacks continue to assert themselves in this community. And if we were to come to a little more recent history, we would have seen a community that has been here resilient, setting up institutions such as the Union United Church, the first and the largest and the oldest Black congregation in Canada. We had iconic institutions like the Colored Women's Club, who they did a magnificent amount of work during the two world wars. And we had a Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, when a lot of the people that worked on trains were Blacks coming from Nova Scotia, the United States. So we've had them forming a union called the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. We've had a community that continued to grow and grow and grow and be on the front line of the human rights and social justice struggle up to today, when we see Black Lives Matter on the street. So the history is quite a colorful one, but the point that I'm trying to make is that it's a deep-rooted history that has always been part of Quebec.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We shall now move on to our next question. Erica Levy, is she there? Erica Levy. No. Okay, so then I have a question for you, Mr. Guy. What has been some of the major contributions of the Black community to Quebec society? I know you touched a little bit upon it. You mentioned some historical figures and some contributions, but is there anything specifically that you think the students should know about?
I think what we have to know about is being part of this society for so long, and the fact that our history is intertwined with the history of Europe. And the fact that Blacks have been part of that triangular development where goods and people and services, individuals were brought from Africa to the Caribbean up to North America, form what we know as a triangular trade, and all coming together with Black people in Quebec and Montreal, starting, becoming part of the economy, becoming part of all. Blacks have played a significant role in institutions such as the healthcare institutions. We are the ones that came here as early as possible, and we've been one who've been here over the years, fitting in and supporting the healthcare institutions. So you would go into the hospitals and you would find a significant number of the workers there, the nurses, the doctors, even the education system also. Blacks have always been here. I'm not going to talk about the cultural part because that has been well known with some of the legendary and iconic musicians that we have grown over the years. But the thing that we have to understand and remember is how integral Blacks have been to the entire development of Quebec over the last 400-500 years.
It's unfortunate that when we look at the history of Quebec, it's not always acknowledged or presented that way, where we see that the Black community has been here since the beginning and has been as foundational as, let's say, the British or the French colonists have been to the formation of Quebec, or the Irish or the Scottish communities. It's been as foundational, if not been here a little bit longer. So I appreciate you coming and telling us and reminding us of all of this history that we can now go and seek out. And I hope that students purposefully go and try to find these details, try to find this history again. We have another question from a student, Mariella Ayun. Are you there? Hi, Mariella. So she has a question for you as well. Go ahead, Mariella.
My question is, considering your publication is a voice for Black Montrealers, what do you think the current reality is?
Well, here's the current reality. The thing is, I started Montreal Community Contact in response to the fact that we've been here so long and our story has found it really difficult to be in the mainstream media. And so 20-something years ago, 25 or more years ago, when I started Community Contact, it was to tell the story of the Black community, that we are here and we've been part of this society for so long, and we are making the contributions and achievements that we've had over the years are sometimes not seen and acknowledged, which leads us to basically watching the reality that Blacks and other minorities and other vulnerable groups are facing is to reinsert themselves in Quebec society, for the government to recognize that Blacks, minority groups, and women and certain other constituents of the society are on the other side of the reality. And so when you hear the debate that we are asking the government to recognize something as simple as systemic racism, which is a institutionalized form of racism that is deeply ingrained in society and impacts on how people get educated, how they get healthcare, how they get housing, and how they reflect themselves on the higher echelon of society, captains of industry. When you when people cannot find access and cannot find their potential. So the reality today is for us as Black media to keep those stories alive, to keep prodding government, to keep prodding society to better respond, not only to Black people, because we have to understand that Blacks have been on the front line for social justice and human rights for decades. And in so doing, we've brought Quebec and Montreal forward. We've made it a better place, because when you deal good with the most vulnerable groups, that's the way you build society. So for us as a media outlet, we have to keep telling those stories, keep prodding, keep pushing, and keep asking society to meet its potential and serve all its people equally and properly.
Wonderful. So I'm hearing that I think there's a sense of denial in Quebec society that racism is systemic and exists, and I don't think the denial comes from a malicious place. I think it's a real sense that when you don't work, I brought this up with the students, when the decision makers are not diverse themselves at any level, at any form of decision making, and any group that has to make decisions, you miss details, right? You miss information, and things don't get pointed out. Like if I don't understand the history of a certain neighborhood, because I'm not from that neighborhood, or I don't have that cultural background in that neighborhood, I might not know that I have to bring up certain issues or that certain things have to be addressed. And then people fall through the cracks, and then that's how things get missed, and that's how racism persists. It's almost like there's a sense of denial that we have to be more acknowledging and recognize that there has to be change in who makes the decisions, in informing diversity and purposely making groups diverse, and in recognizing our own behaviors, our own part in perpetuating these systems, which can be like all the way in the back of our minds, right? Like it's not necessarily something that we're conscious about, but it's something that is so ingrained in us that we don't even know that we think or react with these biases. And so we have to undo all of that, and that takes a long time, unfortunately. But I hope that by meeting people like you and by talking about this in the news and in media, and in schools, that eventually the conversation gets big enough that enough people are aware and change happens. So I would like to say thank you.
That, for sure. Just to add the fact that that's the peril of systemic racism, because systemic racism you exclude groups, you exclude individuals, and you're right. Once people are at the decision-making level, then different decisions, different outcomes. We experience different outcomes, and so you're right on, and that's why we are so strong in asking that people recognize that if you've been outside, if you've been marginalized, if you've been watched progress parade from the outside too long, out, and society have to do better.
Mhm. Thank you so much for attending our assembly and participating in this discussion. Thank you again. I will send out the link to your publication to the students so that they can also have access and so that we can keep this conversation going. Thank you very much.
Amazing work that you're doing, and congratulations on the thing. The performances are going to be spectacular. It's going to be a brilliant morning. Thanks again for doing it, and thanks a lot for the invitation. Be well and congratulations.
You too. Be well. So now we're going to move on to some poetry. We have two groups that will be presenting their poems today. They're from the secondary threes from the slam poetry contest of Miss America's classes. The first poem, We Have a Dream, will be recited by Sienna Goreeb, Terry Janaris, and Jesse Dankoff.
I have a dream. They've watched their lives deteriorate before their eyes. They are taken for granted all their lives. They want to be free, but their wish is not commanded to white supremacy. This oppression makes sensory see. George Floyd cried, I can't breathe. I have a dream. They go to the public bathroom only to find out they don't have the right to be there. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. She had too much to bear. They have to live an unforgivable past while everyone turns their heads so fast. Have you ever wondered if there will be a tomorrow as you witness your family getting taken away by the cold hands of death? Have you ever begged for mercy under your breath?
I have a dream. Why can't we put two and two together and become one? Why couldn't this end decades ago? Because we're done. Done with discrimination, done with segregation, done with this division, done with people making the wrong decision. They used to be at a loss of words, and their pride had been buried beneath their sorrow, but now is a new age, and we need to stand together in unity so we can be each other's yellow. We have a dream to be who we want to be in peace and with equality. Let's make this dream a reality.
Martin Luther King Jr. once phrased the words, I have a dream. Let's not fail him now, tomorrow, or ever again. We have a dream.
Very good. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful poem. We are going to move on to the next poem group. This one is called Time and Evolution. It is by Audrey Walker, Megan Gilbert, and Catherine Cortez.
Time and Evolution. With Time and Evolution, it concluded to Black History Month. Under 28 days, topics like slavery and the Black community are addressed. With Time and Evolution, names such as Marie-Joseph Angelique and Ruby Bridges are written and engraved in our memories.
Marie-Joseph Angelique. Everyone's telling her that she can't be free.
Keep your head down and do as you're told.
Everyone around her is as happy as can be.
They say that she's wrong and that she is to be blamed.
As she's standing outside the doors of her burning home, everyone's saying that she's guilty because of the color of her skin. Her slave masters perish as her people watch. Watch her be hanged
Because she was Black.
Her name was Marie-Joseph Angelique,
And her life mattered. With Time and Evolution came the day of November 14, 1960. 200 people standing outside of the school of which Ruby Bridges was about to attend. She was 6 years old. She was only 6 years old. 2, 4, 6, 8. We don't want to integrate. We're going to poison her. We're going to hang her. These are only a few of the threats that Ruby had to endure.
Time and evolution is what we're looking for. Many inspirational and powerful names in our history have to be discovered.
The truth has to come out.
And what we need is
Time and Evolution.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you to the students. We have more student poems that will be read to us throughout the program. We will now move on to our next guest speaker, Mr. Alain Babineau. He is a legal scholar, and he will be talking to us about racial profiling and the law to help students understand what it is and to see what they can do about it. So hello, Mr. Alain Babineau. I believe you're on mute. You're on mute, Mr. Alain Babineau. There you go.
Yeah,
Welcome.
a bit better unmute myself, right?
Yes, I think we did.
Well, good morning, Ms. Pelliconi, and thank you very much for having me. This is a tremendous initiative. I mean, I'm very proud to be part of this and sharing the stage with the likes of Mr. Gay and the Angelique Francis band. I mean, these are fantastic folks, and so I'm very honored. Look, I've got a special connection with LHA because First of all my three children went to Laurel Hill Academy when we lived in Montreal in the early 2000s. And I coached basketball at the junior campus for 2 years. And guess what? We won the city championships both years and the provincial championship in those years as well. So I'm very, I feel really connected with LHA. I'm still hoping that, you guys are good at basketball as you were back in the day. Otherwise, I'd be very disappointed.
I hope so.
All right. So, again, thank you very much. I've got a PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if everything is connected. I mean, hopefully the technical gods will be on our side this morning so we can get this thing going. Otherwise, I'll improvise. But yeah, so if you can get the PowerPoint up.
Before we get to the PowerPoint, I just want the students who had arranged some questions to ask their questions first, and then see if maybe throughout your discussion those questions get answered. So is Stavrula Manolikakis, is she available, Stavrula? Oh, you're not. You're not Stavrula? Stavrula, are you there? No, she's not there. Okay, so the question that she had, she wants to know who was the first Black police officer in Canada and in Montreal. So hopefully that will get answered during your presentation. Is Lucas Becker there? Is Lucas Becker available? No. Okay, so we're having some technical difficulties here, but he had the question, what is the difference between racism and discrimination? And so the two words, sometimes students get confused between the two words, even adults. Sometimes I get confused between the two words. So we would like to know what the difference is with that. And Amanda Blair, not Amanda Blair, sorry. Mariella Ayun is back at the library. Mariella, it's Mariella. Mariella, are you there? I saw you just before.
Us here. It's Aslan.
Oh, Aslan. Oh, I'm so sorry. Aslan, hi. How are you?
It's all good. I'm good. Don't worry. I'm good.
So you have a question also. So go ahead. Ask your question.
So my question is, what is racial profiling and what can we do if we are racially profiled?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. I think something that many students, unfortunately, might experience or have already experienced, which is unfortunate. So I'll take it to Mr. Alain Babineau to continue with this presentation, and we will put up the PowerPoint presentation now.
Okay. I just got to mention that my wife teaches at Laurel Hill Academy, so that's another connection that I have.
Yes. Actually, that's how I was introduced to you. So this is, in community and networks, this is how we form connections and how we share information and how we grow as a community.
Absolutely.
So we will put on the PowerPoint presentation. Perfect. There we go.
You're not gonna.
Okay.
All right.
Wait, Mr. Babineau.
All right, well, Black History Month, as I said, I'm very proud to be here. I will tell you a little bit about myself. The next slide will show you a little bit about who I am and what I do. Oh.
There we go. Okay, we're going to go back to the presentation. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Difficulties when we're doing this online.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
All right, so this is who I am. I'm calling myself a law enforcement and social justice advocate, simply because I used to be a police officer for nearly 30 years in law enforcement, really, but 28 years with the RCMP. So you see my younger self over there. And now I'm a social advocate. And what does that entail? Well, the next slide is going to show you what it entails, really. But these are the things that I believe in terms of, my values and what I believe. And the last piece, if you click on the thing again one more time, I personally racially profiled individual while I was a police officer, and I'll tell you why that happened in a minute. So let's move on to the next slide so I can tell you. So if you click on the link, it should take you, hopefully, to a little video clip here.
No, it's not going to work, the clip. We tried.
It's not going to work? All right. Well, essentially what I do is it's not complicated. After spending, nearly 30 years in law enforcement, I retired and I decided to go to law school. So I came to law school here in Montreal. So we moved away. We were away from Montreal for, I don't know, maybe about 15 years. And then we came back. I came back after I retired, went to law school, graduated from law school. But while I was in law school, I got engaged and involved with the Center for Research Action on Race Relation in Montreal here, which is a civil rights organization really that helps folks that have, feel to have been victimized by the issue of racial profiling and other things, but human rights, situations, and help them navigate through the various processes that's in there. My focus has been on racial profiling since I started working with the organization, and I developed that expertise. So what is racial profiling? So that should be the next slide. If not, I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to answer the question as to who the first Black policewoman officer was in Canada. Was Rose Fortune, and Rose Fortune was an African American woman that came to Canada with the Loyalists in Nova Scotia, and she was really a business person to begin with. She was an entrepreneur, and she had her whole. Your own business going on the docks in the dockyards in Halifax, because Annapolis Valley actually, Annapolis Royal more particularly, because she had to earn a living. And while she was there, she noticed that there was a lot of folks that were quote unquote up to no good. So she decided to, as well as being an entrepreneur and a businesswoman, she decided to enforce the law on the docks. Okay, on the front, in dockyards. And so she really, by all accounts, is the first Black policewoman officer in Canada. So now we're getting back. So the previous slide was the first Black police officer in Montreal. Well, the first Black police officer in Montreal was Edouard Anglade. Okay, he was hired in 1974. Now you got to remember, there was a police force, as they used to be called, in Montreal since the 1800s and beyond, and before that, even when there was Nouvelle France here in Montreal. But the first Black, and Mr. McGay mentioned Olivier Lejeune, and I mean, you're going back in the 1600s. So it took, nearly almost 300 years before you saw the first Black police officer in this province. There was Edouard Anglade. And I had an opportunity to meet him when I served here in Montreal in the early 2000s. And we did a lot of outreach to communities to promote policing and to encourage Black people to join the police service. And unfortunately, Edouard passed away in 2007 from a brain cancer tumor. And so we lost a tremendous pioneer, but we shall never forget, that he was the first one. And, as I mentioned in there, it took another 7 years after Edouard was hired. So you were talking about the early 80s before another Black got hired in the police service. And now, today, we have less than 1% of the police service here in Montreal that's Black, and about 8% that's sort of from the visible minority, as we call it, that community here in Montreal. So that's really not representative of the community that the police service serves, and we're fighting to change that, to open up the profession to young Black people, so that they become part of the police service and become the face of their communities on the police service, and they become servants to the entire Montreal community. All right, on to the next one. What is racial profiling? Well, I'm not going to read the slide. You can read it for yourself, but essentially it's law enforcement, not just the police, by the way. It can be in the metro. You have security officers. It can be security officers in the in shopping mall. Is that they look at you and they assume that you're a criminal simply because you're Black. Now, that is in essence the situation, and that stems from long-standing stereotypes, okay, about Black people, and it's really ingrained in society that we live in. And because police officers are people that are part of the society, they didn't drop in from Mars or out of nowhere. They're really citizens just like you and I, and they come into the police service with a particular views and values and stereotypes that they've learned from the time that they went through a junior K all the way up to when they get into the academy. And because policing or security services, private security service, one of the goals is to deter criminalities. And if you have in your mind that there are certain people that are more prone to being criminals, those are the people that you're going to target and focus on. That is totally wrong. And really, we have a lot of work to do, but it starts, in my opinion, with junior kindergarten. It has to be all the way through the education system so that when folks want to become police officers, they will have at least, hopefully, shed away all those negative stereotypes and prejudice that they've developed over time. So that's what racial profiling is really all about. On to the next one.
Next slide.
Now, this is very important because because of the fact that this province, or at least the government in this province, I would say, does not recognize systemic discrimination and racism, which, as Mr. Gay explained, it's really the way in which policies and practices and norms are being formed and are fueled by, again, stereotypes and particular discriminatory practices. Well, it becomes ingrained, and if you don't believe that it exists, then you believe that there are a whole bunch of racists running around doing bad things to people, and then you gotta hunt the racists. And that's a mission impossible. So racism is really an ideology that says that my race is better than yours. All right? And so that's why you can have black people that are racist. They're racist because they feel that as black people, their race is better than the other. That's racism. Okay? And of course, this society, this Western world has been fueled by what we call white supremacist ideology, which is an ideology that says that white race is superior than the other. Now, from my experience, there are very few people out there that are true racists. In other words, that truly believes that because they're white, they are superior to other races. Very few of them. That leads us to the second definition of discrimination. Now, that's the distinction, exclusion, or preference based on prohibited grounds in the Charter of Rights and Freedom. I don't know if you guys have learned that in school just yet, but we have a Canadian Charter. We also have a Quebec Charter, which prohibit discrimination. In other words, treating somebody better or worse based on their race, their ethnic origin. In some cases, it could be gender, but we're talking about race here, discrimination. So if, I treat somebody worse, or I target somebody because they look a particular way because they're black, okay, then that's discrimination. I don't necessarily think that I'm superior. Okay, a police officer does not necessarily think he's superior because he's white, but he targets a black person, particularly discriminate on the black person and treat them differently, okay, in the application of the law because the person is black. The police officer may be married to a black woman. He might have some mixed children, but it doesn't mean he's racist, but it means that he has this idea that black people out there are more prone to criminalities. That's the distinction. It's in the form of discrimination. By the way, racialized officers, and I mentioned it earlier, racialized officers are also prone to discriminate based on, again, societal values and stereotypes that have developed over time. And when they get into the police service or in security, they're being sort of coached into focusing their attention more on certain groups. And they're not necessarily racist, but it'll start discriminating against those groups based on those stereotypes and those values. So it's very important, and I think And I think the refusal to recognize systemic discrimination and racism stems from this idea that folks say, well, I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist, therefore this is not part of the institute. I'm not a racist. There are some racist people, and we'll find them. Well, good luck, because people don't wear a T-shirt or some kind of hat saying I'm a racist. Okay, and so that makes the challenge of finding or hunting down racists a tremendous a tremendous challenge. And the sooner we acknowledge that we have discrimination within our policies, within our practices, within our laws, the quicker we'll be able to review those things and change them and make them more equal right across the board for everyone. All right, so that's kind of my little spiel there, but that's what needs to happen. Do I have more slides?
Yes. So let's move on to, yes, what should a student do, or should anyone do, if they do get racially profiled?
Well, first thing you need to do is to stay calm. Easier said than done if you feel you've been wrongly accused or targeted or what have you, but you got to stay calm, because at the end of the day, the police or security, they have the upper hand, right? I mean, they're there to do a job. I'm not saying they're doing a job right, but they're there to do a job. And if you don't stay calm, things will escalate out of control, and chances are you won't have the upper hand. So you got to stay calm and cooperate, right? Do what it needs to be done. Provide identification. If your friends are recording the incident, which is all right, you have the right to record, as long as you don't get in people's face, though. You got to be from a distance. You got to record. That's okay. And I encourage people to do that. But you got to make sure that you cooperate and you don't intervene. You don't interfere in the police officer's work or the security guard's work. But you can film. There's nothing in the law that prohibits you from filming at nauseum.
Okay. So
you can do that. Number two, you got to get assistance from an organization that helps folks with these types of situations. Because if you do it yourself, when you get victimized, you're very emotional. You do a lot of things. You're going to post a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook or Instagram or whatever else, Snapchat, all of those different things, and which is really cathartic in terms of you really, it gives you feel good. You feel
like
that you
the release of your anger,
and that's all right. But at the same time, it cannot stop there, because no action will be taken based on Facebook posts or Instagram or Snapchat, right? Police officers and police agencies won't be held to account on any of that stuff. So you got to get to an organization that can help you. And then number three, you got to file a complaint. I had a conversation a couple of days ago with a black lawyer here in Montreal, who grew up in Ville Saint-Laurent. So right here, right there.
Our school is, yeah.
He grew up, and he says that by the way, he was recently a victim of racial profiling. I don't know if you might have seen him on in the media. He's a lawyer. He was racially profiled, and but he said to me, he says, I'm going to be filing a complaint. But he said, I wish I had done it much sooner in life. When he was a student attending, and he was attending Laurel Hill, but when he was a student in Ville Saint-Laurent and Cartierville, he said, man, we used to get chased by the police all the time, and we used to hide and go see, like it was a game. And there were times where we were racially profiled and taken advantage of. We did nothing. We'd go home and lick our wounds and feel bad about ourselves, and complain and rant and rave, and did absolutely nothing. And he says, I wish I had done that, because if everyone were to do that, then you'd have the evidence. It'd be massive, because if you look at an organization like the Police Ethics Commissioner's Office, which is really the receptacle for all complaint against the police, right? If you look at their stats, and if they get 200 a year, let's say, for the whole province, Well, that's not much. And they say, well, maybe there's no issue here. But if
Right.
if the next year they get 2,000, whoa, now they're saying, well, there's something here and something that needs to get done. So I encourage folks to stay calm, cooperate, get assistance from an organization that will help you through the process, but file a complaint. Don't just complain on Snapchat. That won't do nothing for you.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That's actually very useful and very helpful advice, I think, for everybody. Very clear. Thank you very much.
And I leave you on this note. Don't just be a victim, be a victor.
Right. Make change happen, right?
Exactly.
Take what has happened to you and turn it into change rather than sitting with it and turning it into anger and resentment. Excellent.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for this, for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being on our program and in our assembly. And what you said, I think, is very enlightening and very clear. Like I said before, clear for the students, clear for us to know how to react and how to actually do something, take action that will lead to meaningful change. So thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Have a great day. For all the senior students out there, actually Sec 3, 4, and 5, there is an organization that has approached Laurel Hill with a series of workshops. Okay, so it's a legal clinic with a series of workshops to help students become more legally literate. Okay, so more aware of the law and how to work within the law and how to work to change the racist systems that we have here in society. So if there are any students who would like to have more of what Mr. Babineau was saying, but over the course of 10 different workshops that are weekly, they'll be after school, online. You need to come and see me or Mr. Kulchik to sign up. This is only for secondary 3, 4, and 5, but it is taking what Mr. Babineau was saying and expanding on it to a full 10 1-hour workshop on how we can understand the whole system of all of this, the whole legal system of all of this, and how to actually take action so that there can be meaningful change. We are going to move on now to our next poetry reading. So this is with Basilio Saklis, Olivia Del Rosso, and Alexia Russos reading Dream.
The foolish acts of rich white men led to a long era of mistreatment. Will it ever end? Long days, short nights, Harriet Tubman would fight for her rights. The attempt of freedom was a great risk. Those who made it were filled with delight. Those who didn't were filled with fright. Harriet Tubman, a hero till this day, rescuing many slaves night and day. She had a dream to be free.
In Washington, D.C., a man had a dream that all humans would work together as a team. The Congress passed the Civil Rights Act so we can all reunite as a pack. Martin Luther King, already living an unfair life, was taken away too soon from his beloved wife.
He had a dream for impartiality. Fighting race-based discrimination, people came together to form an organization. As a multicultural foundation, the NAACP worked to end segregation. They fought for the same cause, and we regret to put it to a pause. This is a problem that will not end overnight. We have to work together to end the fight.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to show a video. This is from the Secondary 5 dance class with Ms. Céline Ranger. It's to the poem Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. And it's the beginning of a dance sequence that is being put together for the end of year performances that the dance course always puts on. And so we're going to watch this video.
You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hate. But just don't like it. Does my sexiness offend you? Does it come as a surprise that I'm dead? As if I have diamonds.
Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a movement break. So I want everyone to stand up. This is Miss Edwidge Romulus. She's the French teacher and also resource teacher here at Junior Campus. And she's going to teach us some really cool dance moves. It's called Afro dance. And she's going to show us some different moves and also explain where they come from. Because she was telling me that on TikTok, these dances are everywhere, but not everybody knows their origins. So she's gonna show us moves and she's going to give us a little bit of some information on that. So I want everyone to stand up, including me. I will also be standing up, and she's going to be teaching me these dance moves. So here we go. Okay.
All right, everybody. Hello, my name is Miss Edrich, like she had said. So I just want to be able to give you guys some dance movement that you're going to be able to show off to your friends and family at your next gathering after the pandemic. But these are movements that are easy, that we'll normally see on social media or TikTok, but we don't know the names. So I will be able to give you a bit of background, just the names and where they're from. And trust me, they're easy steps. All right, so let's jump right into it. The first one is called Gwara Gwara, and it's from South Africa, okay? So I don't know if you guys can see my whole body, but my lower body, I would always break down the movement from two parts, lower body, upper body. So your lower body, I want you to have the heel up, and I want you to go inside 3 times. And I want you to use your knee to hit something, okay? So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3. That's it. And your upper body is gonna follow the motion of your lower body. So I want you to go hook, 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 okay? So now if you combine 2 together, it's gonna go 1, 2, 3. Okay, I know you guys got it, okay? So now we're gonna do levels to this. We're gonna go 3 times up and 3 times down. Ready? 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is the Gwara Gwara. Next one is Soki. It is actually from Nigeria. I want you to think about a sun rising up and sunset, okay? So the upper body is gonna go up, 3, 4, 5, 6, and down, okay? So it's gonna go 4, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And your lower body, I want you to be also at an angle. It's gonna go inside, 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 inside. And this is always gonna continue as your hands are going up and down. Okay, let's try that together. Ready? We're gonna start from the bottom. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so this is the Soki. Then we have Soku Soku, that is from Nigeria. Okay, so Soku Soku, the upper body goes cross on cross, cross on cross. And now if you want to be cool and add a bit of your own flavor, you can go hanging up the phone, picking up the phone, hanging up the phone, and picking up the phone, okay? The lower body, I want you to think about you're about to start skating, okay? So it's gonna go skate, 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 okay? We're gonna combine. You're gonna see a lot of Afro movement is a lot to do with coordination. Our body, lower body movement, okay? Let's put them together. 8 counts all of this. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hanging up the phone. Hang up. Pick it up. Hang up. Pick it up. Okay. And the last but not least, it's called Agwaba. It is from Ghana, and it actually means welcome. So I want you to wash off something off your hands 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Actually 4 times. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then raise your hand like you guys do in class when you have a question. Okay, raise your hand, okay, and 4 times. So it's gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this dance is a movement dance. So we're gonna go side to side. Your lower body is gonna go marching forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's try it together. We're gonna start to the right side, yeah? Yeah. Is this the right side? Yes, it is. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and raise your hand 4. Okay, so we did the Gwara Gwara. We did the Soki. Okay, no, Soku, sorry. There you go. We did the Soku Soku. Okay, boom, bam, boop. And then the Agwaba, okay? So now we're gonna put the music on, and I want you to try. This is fun, and for those who are at junior campus, please, when you see me, I want you to show me the movement to see if you got it. If you want some question, you want me to teach you something more in depth, I'll be my honor to also do that, okay?
Awesome.
All right, music. Tell me do I come down. And then we're gonna start together, okay? Go around first. 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Slow it down. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we're gonna go to circle. We're gonna go down, rising up, rising down. Going down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're gonna go to circle. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're gonna go aguava. Ready? 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yay! So that's it for me. Looking forward to see you guys in the hallway busting the moves. And see you guys later.
Thank you. That was awesome. I wish you could have gotten longer, but we do have to move on to our last poetry reading. So we have Luca Aziz, Michael Montenegro, and Satsumis, and they are going to read their poem, Human.
Human. 1963, Martin Luther King gave a speech with the words of most people can only dream. He started a movement to do what's right, but was told not to put up a fight.
I had a dream
Was the name of his speech. It changed the thoughts of those on the streets.
Human. We're all just human.
That's what he was trying to show us, but no one would take a seat. Racism was everywhere you went, in the streets and every event. He fought for the right to help his community sleep tight. He always kept the fight even when things were tight, to show his community the bread in the daylight.
Human. That's what we are.
Nothing more, nothing less. That's what he was trying to represent through the mess. Human.
Be careful around white folks. My mother always warned me. As the color, the melanin in my skin has an impact, you see. The South was a place I had always dreamed to live in. But little did I know I had came across a wolf in a sheepskin. She was gorgeous with brown hair, so shiny. So I gave her a whistle and a wink ever so kindly. This cost my life because of my dark skin, my dark color. And this left what was left of me with a devastated mother. My name was Emmett Till, and I was only 14. I had a whole life ahead of me.
Human. 1955, Rosa Parks started a movement as an activist
in civil rights.
She started to make the world a little bright. She was the mother of freedom. She gave the world reasons. Reasons to stand up for their race. Reasons to make sure people knew there were no disgrace. Rosa Parks was told not to
move from her seat.
Move from the spot she knew she wasn't supposed to be. A movement to make the world realize
there needs to be a change.
This is how racism and segregation started to fade.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. And then we have our last poetry group. We have Hazel Biku, Tatiana Pano Skalitis, and Maria Papa Panagiutu with their poem, Shame on You.
You should be ashamed. Ruby Bridges is only 6. She had to fight for knowledge at the color of her skin.
You could walk free, you could walk easy, but not if you were the same color as Ruby. Ruby Bridges was her name, but that didn't matter to white people who shamed. Shame on you for being black. Shame on you for thick hair. Black people's feelings won't be spared. Black Lives Matter, I can't breathe, but Ruby's age was 3 + 3.
Not to escape into reality, and this is a mess.
White against black like a game of chess. White hate black so society can rest.
The men with white cloaks, bright as day, you may know them as KKK.
You should be ashamed. Ku Klux Klan, hating African Americans is their plan. Nappy-haired, dark-skinned, they won't stand. Hating innocent black lives.
Ku Klux Klan, they're trying to escape to another land. They're trying to change their names.
Waking up every day in my chains. The South blacks wanting to be free, traveling at night so silently.
You should be ashamed.
Skin doesn't define who you are.
Everyone was born a star.
So open your minds and your heart.
And may Black history have a new start.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of the students for their slam poetry. Very inspiring, very uplifting. We will now move on to our final guest speaker, Duke Eatman. He is a CBC broadcaster. You may recognize his voice. So thank you very much, Duke, for coming to the program, for being in our part of our assembly. Welcome to LHA.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I want to thank you and, of course, the students of Laurel Hill Academy High School for having me, as well as Miss Charmaine, everyone's favorite teacher at the school. I want to tip my hat off to Officer Babineau. I really enjoyed his presentation. And although I didn't get a chance to see Egbert's because I couldn't log on, we have a maximum amount of people
Right.
that can be logged on. He's my former newspaper editor and a good friend.
Hmm.
And I'm sure he did an incredible presentation. The African dance was incredible, and I enjoyed all the poetry. And again, I want to thank you all for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have a few questions that we would like to use to help guide the discussion. Is Aslin there? Aslin, student, Aslin.
Hi, yeah, I'm back.
Hi. Welcome back.
Hi, Aslin.
What is your question? Go for it.
My question is, how was Black music developed?
Well, Black music was developed many, I can't even count, but obviously many years ago in Africa. And because there was no entertainment industry in Africa, music in Africa amongst Black people, which is probably the first music on the face of the earth, was used as a means of worship and spiritual praise. And, it wasn't about singing and dancing on stage to entertain people, but it had a deep spiritual meaning. It took a twist after the transatlantic slave trade, when Black people were brought into the Western Hemisphere, all over the United States and Canada and the Caribbean, South America. And a lot of the times, what we call Negro spirituals, or the early form of Black American gospel, was usually a means of communication for slaves to actually give each other messages. So, for instance, when you would sing the Negro spiritual, Wade in the Water, it meant that for those that wanted to escape slavery in the southern part of the United States, to come up to the Underground Railroad in Canada, it meant we're going to meet by the water tonight. Or Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, another very popular Negro spiritual, meant that we were going to hide you in a horse chariot to get you out of the plantation. So it took a very, very different meaning once Black people were in bondage. And of course, over centuries, it was developed. And then it became the most influential form of entertainment on the planet today. But in its original form, it was a spiritual and a worshiping vehicle, if you will. And then it became a means of survival during the slave trade.
Interesting. I have another question. And I think this, this could be a controversial question perhaps, but did Black people invent what we would consider to be the only original form of American music today?
Absolutely.
Art form.
There's nothing controversial about it. The only American art form is jazz. So when you look at other forms of music that we're familiar with, when you're talking about the classics and you're talking about Brahms and Mozart and Beethoven, that's music that was developed in Europe. Mm-hmm. The only form of music to ever be developed in the United States, and of course we're talking post, the settlements and whatnot, the original Americans and Canadians, the indigenous people and First Nations people had their own form of music and their own form of art and communication. But in regards to, the United States having become a republic and whatnot, the only art form or of music to come out of that was jazz, which really was a descendant of the blues and gospel. And it's all in the tradition of the African American expression and musical art form. So really, when you talk about, American masters, the only American masters that exist are Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong and Count Basie, those that developed the vernacular of music to come out of the United States.
Fascinating. Very interesting. I don't think anybody really, not everybody looks at music that way. They don't always know the history of music and the chronological development of American music. We kind of see it as like, oh, it's just, people just don't realize, they just hear a song and they don't realize the origins of that musical genre.
Well, especially living in a society where historically Black people have been victims of discrimination and racism, but exclusion from the mosaic, if you will, it often gets left out. But there is no other art form of music that was ever created in the United States of America.
Fascinating. Mariella.
Hi.
She has a question
Hi,
for you.
Mariella. Pleasure to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too. My question is, what are the many other styles of music that Black people have historically developed?
Well, there hasn't been too many that are part of popular mainstream music or subgenres that haven't been developed by African Americans. Today, people enjoy things like what they call EDM and electronic dance music, or what they used to call a few years ago techno, which is actually developed by a Black American DJ and producer by the name of Juan Atkins in the late 1970s, early 1980s. You have another style of very slow down hip hop called trip hop, developed from a gentleman who was in a group called Massive Attack from England, a Black brother named Tricky. Drum and bass, which is a very up-tempo form of, it's almost like house music on steroids, if you will. One of the big pioneers of that style was Goldie. Heavy metal music, I mean, we still have a lot of metalheads out there that basically can be retraced to the volume and the sounds of Jimi Hendrix from the 1960s. When he was doing music back then, he just called it electronic blues. But everybody that followed suit, that followed in the style that he performed, that eventually became known as heavy metal, started with Jimi Hendrix. Rock and roll was pioneered by Muddy Waters, a blues musician from Mississippi, who when he moved to Chicago, when he would play house parties, because of the noisy sounds of Chicago, much louder than what he was used to in the very rural areas of Mississippi, in the southern part of the United States, he had to actually buy an amplifier. So when Muddy Waters, born McKinley Morganfield, amplified the blues, that was the birth of rock and roll. And then the pioneers that developed it were people like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Bo Diddley, Fats Domino, hip hop as well. The person that we regard as the godfather of hip hop is DJ Kool Herc, who was a gentleman from Jamaica who moved with his family in the late 1960s to the Bronx, New York. And then all the other things that come out of hip hop, whether it's trap music, whether it's chopped and screwed, all the different styles of hip hop that people listen to today, all developed by Black music makers from around the globe. And country music as well. Hank Williams is regarded as the godfather and one of the main pioneers of country and Western music. He actually was taught by a Black blues man by the name of Rufus Payne. And a lot of the songs that he did that became hit songs that he was credited to writing to are actually songs that he purchased from Black American bluesmen. So Black people are the pioneers of country and Western music as well. And we just lost a great Black country and Western singer, Charlie Pride, late last year, who was also an incredible baseball player and considered one of the greatest country singers ever. He just passed away a few months ago.
This is all very fascinating. I think, when people think of music, they don't necessarily think of history. Maybe students don't think of history. They think history is just facts and dates and, events. But really, music is so complex and brings in so many different elements that it's fascinating to know the historical roots of all of the different musical genres that we love today, that we hear on the radio today. So this is very interesting. Do you have any recommendations in terms of podcasts or books that you think the students might, I know I'm just throwing this question at you, but that you think the students might benefit from being able to maybe learn more about this area?
Listen to me on CBC every day. Black History Month has been a very special time for me because although I'm on 5 days a week on CBC Radio 1, which is 88.5 FM, and of course, cbc.ca online, because that's how young people listen to music today. In Black History Month, during the entire month of February, I block it off and play only Black music and teach the history and teach about the pioneers that developed the art form that's influenced every style of music today. Of course, I'll make sure that I get URLs to you and all that, the links that students can log on. There are many. And it's really not self-promotion. It's not to promote CBC. It's not to promote myself. But I rarely just play music to play music. I play music because I enjoy music and people enjoy music, but I want you to know the history behind it. Think of music history like a car manual. You buy yourself a really nice car and you really enjoy it. Something goes wrong, you start tinkering with it without understanding the car and what's inside the manual. you could really make a big mess out of it.
Mm.
So history is not just facts and figures, but it helps you to better understand the vehicle, whether it's a car or whether it's the art form of music itself, the way that it works best. And it's incredible when you do go into history, you find out things that you had no idea, and they change your life because it changes the narrative of what you think. So for instance, if you're a Black person and you understand your contributions to music, people can't lessen who you are anymore, and people can't minimize your contributions. And if you're not Black, you can learn to appreciate and respect a group of people for things that you absolutely had no idea that they were responsible for. So both sides win when you understand the history, and that goes with everything and all people.
So that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you very much, Duke.
Thank you for having me.
Our final presenter. This was a wonderful, wonderful program with all of our guest speakers, our students, and all of our teacher collaborators. So students, thank you so much for your presence, for your attention, for your attendance. And this brings us to the close of our assembly. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.